You know, I've been asked so many times about sibinx, how it all came about. I'd like to talk to you about that. You know, I was in China for the Olympics in 2008. And like everybody else, I was blown away with how well the Chinese were doing. Never in Olympic history before had one country dominated the gold. Everything they did, they were either the gold or the silver. It just was amazing. And I'm paying attention to some of these athletes, and I'm seeing that they're wearing either some type of a necklace or a bracelet. And later came out to find out even some of the swimmers had special swimsuits. But my point was, I've seen this, and I started asking questions. What's with the bracelet and the necklace? Is it, you know, like in the States, we have, you know, Live Strong. We have all these different bracelets that mean different things. And I found out that no, that those bracelets and those necklaces that they were wearing had a special mineral in them. And this mineral gave them more endurance and more strength and helped their blood circulation, helped them remain more focused, and consequently they did better. And so now I'm intrigued. This is exciting. I want to find out more about this. And as I started to research this, I found out that the mineral that they were using was tourmaline. Now, tourmaline is a semi-precious stone. I didn't think that was anything special, but it was special in the sense that they use the black tourmaline that's, you know, found primarily in China. It's also in Brazil, but primarily in China. Now, let me tell you about tourmaline. Tourmaline produces a small microcurrent of electricity. You put a meter on it, and it'll measure a small amount of electricity. You can take a hammer to that stone, and each little piece of that stone is still producing a little bit of electricity. So it produces a negative ion. It has this electrostatic effect in the stone. Well, when they ground that up into a powder and they blended it into their different bracelets and necklaces, they found that they had more endurance. They could play longer. They could remain more focused on their sport. This really intrigued me, and I wanted to learn more and more. And so I started researching the black tourmaline, and I found different mines that were mining tourmaline and making different products out of black tourmaline. But I came across one in particular, and it was up in the northeast provinces of China, in the province of Qingdao. And we went up and visited with the owner of this mine, and he was calling his super tourmaline. I said, well, what makes it super? He said, well, it's not exactly tourmaline. I said, well, then how can you call it super tourmaline? He said, well, you see, millions of years ago, there was an asteroid that hit this part of the world. And as it came through the atmosphere, it was coming through at such speeds that it became liquid, molten. And as it hit these limestone mountains, it just infused into the mountains. And so you look at these mountains and you see all these veins going through the mountains, these limestone mountains. Well, all those veins are the remnants of that liquid meteor as it hit. And they've termed that, they've given that a name of sibin. Well, now I'm really intrigued about this. Well, he was making this sibin for the military in China. Couldn't even tell me what it was all for, but it was all for military products. And he says, you know, you put it on pipes, and the pipes don't corrode. They don't, the minerals don't build up on the inside of them. He's telling me all these wonderful things about sibin. So I bought some of this sibin powder from him. And we went back and we started blending with it and mixing with it. And we found that if we just held that in our hands, we had more energy, more strength. And so we started to work with it in different products. Well, as he was talking to us about this, telling us that 4,500 years ago, the Chinese, in their history, 4,500 years of recorded history, they've been using sibin. But it was only reserved for the royalty and for the very, very wealthy. They found that if sibin was ground into a powder, made into a poultice, and put on a wound or a broken leg, that it would heal without an infection. The bones would set almost perfectly straight. And he's telling me all these, you know, fantastic stories, unbelievable stories. And he says up until the late 80s, it was considered sacred, magical, depending on who you were talking to, but it was a special mineral. Well, here's what happened. In the early 1990s, they decided they needed to take it out of the realm of magic and find out just what was in this, what was making this stone so fantastic. And so they contracted the Beijing University of Medicine, and they did a clinical trial with 1,200 people. Now here's what they found. They found The one thing that they could measure real easy was the effect that it had on liquids. When this mineral was put with water, it changed the structure of the water. The water was smoother, it was wetter, it was healthier. And so they figured, well, we'll do a clinical trial on fluids. Well, the most abundant fluid in our body is blood. And so in order to be part of this clinical trial, you had to have either hypertension, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, high triglycerides, or diabetes. You had to have one of those issues to be part of this test. And what they did is they took and they made a couple ounces of this powder and they put it into a little pouch. And they were told to carry that pouch either in their pocket or wear it around their neck. And they were to do that. And once every 2 weeks they came in and had a blood draw. That was the clinical trial. Wear it either in your pocket or around your neck. Come in for a blood test every 2 weeks. Here's the most amazing thing. In this trial, 83% of the people that had gone through that 6-month period of time were now normal with their blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, and glucose levels. Only 17% had not made it into normal. But all 17% had shown improvement. So in one way of looking at it, 100% of the people benefited from having this powder around their body. And 83% were back into normal. Now you had my attention. This was exciting. This was something that I could take. And I thought, well, you know, somebody has to have heard about this. But nobody. Nobody's ever heard about this. And you don't hear it being shouted. I mean, you think everybody would be shouting about how wonderful this is. So we decided as a company to start experimenting with sibin. Well, sibin by nature is a little bit unstable. Sometimes it's really powerful and sometimes it's not powerful. And we found that if you pressurize it, it's really powerful. If you shake it, it becomes very powerful. And when I say powerful, the amount of negative ions that it emits and the amount of far infrared energy that it emits is measurable. You can actually see that when it's in an excited state. So we decided that we would do something simple. We would put it into a silicone bracelet, something that you could wear, or a silicone necklace around your neck, something that was inert and easy to make and something people could wear easily. And so we blended that and we found that our bracelets and necklaces were outperforming those that had just the black tourmaline. And when I say they were better, people that were used to wearing the black tourmaline, after a period of time, they didn't give them that strength and that focus that they used to have. Well, we later found that as your body uses that energy, it depletes it out of the black tourmaline. Now, the same thing happens with sibin as well over a longer period of time. So what we found that if we put those two minerals together, black tourmaline and sibin, we had something that became essentially a rechargeable battery. You could recharge the energy that you drew out of that mineral. And all you had to do was put it out to where it got energy from the sun. You know, the UV and the energy that comes from the sun over a period of a couple hours would recharge that mineral compound back to its original strength. Well, we started to experiment with this and we just saw tremendous things. People that were used to the other ones preferred these because they had more endurance and more focus. So the whole sibin and sibinx is what we call it now, because what we found that with those two, even though they were rechargeable, they were still somewhat unstable. We experimented over a period of a few months with different mineral compounds that we could add to that stabilized those, that maintained their activity at a pretty constant level. And we now have called that sibinx. And that is the powder that you'll find in the bracelets and necklaces from Solex.